This is Every Hornets Box Score. I'm Doug Branson. I'm joined today by Walker Mail. Later, we're going to hear from the founder of Rufus On Fire, the blog on the Charlotte Bobcats, David A. Arnott. He will help us dig into this fourth era of the franchise's history, which I'm calling the death of the Bobcats. It takes place from 2010 all the way to the year 2016, when the Charlotte Hornets came back and made the playoffs under Steve Clifford. That Kemba Walker, Nick Batum, Al Jefferson, Jeremy Lin playoff series ends era 4. So we'll randomly pick a box score in just a moment. But if you haven't subscribed to the Substack yet, please do. And we're wrapping all of this programming into Locked On Hornets, our summer offerings over the month of August. So if you haven't subscribed to Locked On Hornets yet, wherever you get podcasts, please do. Also on YouTube. So got all of the business out of the way. Walker, thank you for joining me.
Yes, as once again, talking about the Bobcats in some sort of capacity. I do, maybe before you pick the game real quickly, I did want to talk a little bit about why you defined the era the way you did. And I think you got it right. But some people, you might argue, the death of the Bobcats were going into the Hornets era. So it's not necessarily like the death of the Bobcats. You would think maybe it starts right at the beginning of when the Charlotte Hornets, they come back. But you decided to go a little bit further, right? Like you actually do have a couple of the beginning Hornets years. So maybe that Bobcats mantra infiltrates the Hornets actually coming back. And I think you got it right. But was that kind of what you were thinking? It just felt like, as far as performance goes, this is you felt like this era had a lot in common?
Well, I think part of it was to split up the games. There was a little bit of practicality to it all, which is I wanted an equal-ish number of games in all of the eras. That way, when we did the random selections, as we moved through this process, you had a sort of equally weighted kind of situation going on. But so I started era 3, the Bobcats, I call it the Bobcats or the Bobcat Cometh, whatever you want to call it, 2004 to...
I want to call it that. I want to call it the latter.
You want to call it the Bobcat Cometh? All right, so the Bobcat Cometh is era 3. It goes from 04, obviously the start of the Bobcats, to that playoff series where they went down 4-0 in that playoff series that Larry Brown, Stack Jack, got the Bobcats into the playoffs after a lot of heartbreak for the franchise. They finally get to the playoffs, and there seemed to be some hope. And I'm going to talk with David Arnott about this. There seems to be some hope for the franchise. And then I feel like that next season, the 2010-2011 season, dashed a lot of that hope. You had Larry Brown getting the ejector seat and Paul Silas coming in. It ultimately led to 7-59. And then Steve Clifford kind of brought the franchise back into some kind of relevancy, a second playoff trip. But by that time, I feel like that next season after that first playoff run was really the death of the Bobcats. It's like, all right, this team just can't get right.
Yeah, it's funny. The death of the Bobcats. It sounds so horrifying, but also it depends on the glass half full or half empty thing. The death of the Bobcats, it was brutal during that time, but also we are moving back to our beloved. The
glass was full of poison. It wasn't half empty. It wasn't half full. It was full to the brim of liquid poison.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, like it depends on if you think is it half full of poison or is it half empty of poison. Either way, it's pretty negative. So let's dive right in. What game?
All right, let's pick a game.
Let's do it.
We're going to the Bees machine, our handcrafted, homemade machine to randomly select a box score. All I have to do is pull the lever, which we have nicknamed the Jimmy, and I will do that right now.
There you go.
Bees everywhere!
It's going. Okay.
Perfect. Now I can't see you right now just because sometimes that happens, but if you'll allow me to see you, then did we get an actual hard copy this time from the Bees machine, or are we still trying to save the earth and do the whole
I told you I'm saving. That's why I told you last episode, I'm saving the earth. No more paper outputs. It's all LED. It's all technology now. It's telling me right now what the game is going to be. and it is going to be November 20th, 2010, the Charlotte Bobcats versus the Phoenix Suns. All right, to that season that I just mentioned, 2010 and 2011. Now, this was November, so that means Larry Brown is still the head coach. We have not gotten to Larry Brown's unceremonious ejection from the franchise and into the second Paul Silas era. The Hornets start out 5-8 off of that playoff run, but they do get the win here, 123-105 against the Phoenix Suns at 6-7. So let's look at this box score, and then we can kind of maybe poke around at. I kind of set this season up a little bit before we pick the box score. We can set it up a little bit more after that.
Okay, now first seeing this line, right? First seeing Charlotte beating Phoenix in 2010.
Handily.
Yes, very handily. I was at this game.
Oh, okay.
I attended this game. I was a junior in high school at the time. And so, I was a senior in high school. I was a senior. And so, my buddy, his dad actually got tickets through work. They were awesome seats. They were right behind the basket. They were, like maybe 10, 15 rows up. So we were very close to the action. And Doug, so the only reason I remember this game, because I went to a decent amount of Bobcats games, especially in high school. We thought it was cool to go up.
How many would you say? How many games would you say you attended?
We went a lot junior and senior year just because we could drive. So we did that quite a bit. I probably combined, 30 games, maybe 25, something like that. But yeah, so that was a lot for us.
Driving
it's not like
to
we're
Uptown is some teenagers driving to Uptown.
That. Oh, we were cool, man. Hey, let's be crazy. Let's buy tickets today and go up the same day because we're bad, man. We did that with LeBron when he came to town, when he played for the Miami Heat. We looked it up in class. We were in biology. We're just like, let's just buy tickets and head up there. So we did that a lot. The only reason
hold on. That says everything you need to know about the Bobcats, that you could, LeBron coming to town, and you could look up tickets same day and grab them. That's all you really need to know.
And LeBron destroyed him too. I mean, he went off. He put on an excellent performance. He always does, right? Gets back at MJ. But the only reason I know this game is because something significant happened. I remember that Steven Jackson, he got a triple-double. And it's the first one. I remember it. Yes, there was a triple-double count once we realized it was in play. And Steven Jackson got the first triple-double in Bobcats history. Yes, I got to see history. However crazy it was that it took a long time for us to see a triple-double with the Bobcats.
That's good history.
I seen it.
All right, yeah, so here it is, 24 points, 10 assists, and 10 rebounds for Stack Jack on 10 of 13 shooting. For those counting at home, that's nearly 77% from the field, 4 of 7 from 3. And he added 2 blocks and 2 steals to go along with that. Wowza, that's not only a triple-double. I mean, that's a hell of a game. And I need to look up some history on triple-doubles in Charlotte Hornets, or the franchise's history. But I have to say this is pretty lucky because I think there's around 30. So we picked 30 of 2,500 games. The Bees Machine delivered a triple-double. That's astounding. I don't know what the actual probability of that is. I'll look it up. But it's got to be astounding.
So you're saying you think there's 30 total since we've had basketball back in Charlotte after they left? Is that what you're saying?
I think so. Well, no, I think 30 total. Old Hornets, Bobcats, and I don't know. It's somewhere. I think it's around 30. I'll look it up.
Well,
let's get the total and then I'll put it in the calculator.
Okay. Well, LaMelo already has 5 or 6 to his name. He does not have the most in franchise history. I think there's a guy that has one more. Maybe that's true, but yeah, I think LaMelo has, he's got a decent amount. He's got a good portion of the all-time triple doubles.
All right, so I'm on this is the, I don't know why it doesn't list out the players here. Come on, Stat Muse. All right. So there's the I could count those up, but let's look at this. Okay, so Anthony Mason still
makes
leads
sense.
the franchise in number of triple doubles at 7. LaMelo is at 6. Nick Batum is at 5. Larry Johnson has 5. Baron Davis has 3. Kemba Walker has 2. Kendall Gill has 2. Terry Rozier has 1. Steven Jackson has 1. Obviously, Boris Diaw gets 1. Okay, Boris getting the triple double as a Bobcat.
He should have had more, and I'll get into that later. But I mean, so feels like he should have had more.
All right, so Mash gets 1 as well to round things out. So let me just do a quick count here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Yeah, nice call. Yeah, right on the dot.
Oh, 30 triple doubles in Charlotte Hornets history. Certainly, LaMelo Ball is going to eclipse that in this next season.
And LaMelo and Mace making up close to half. So you had 13 between the two, I believe. And so those two guys, man.
So if I do the probability on this, 30, there's about 20. We'll just do 2,500, but there's actually been more games than that. But yeah, I mean, we had a 1% chance of hitting a triple double game. So the Bees machine delivering big time.
Yeah, this is a great one.
And as I look through this list of triple doubles, and if you're watching this on YouTube, on the Locked On Hornets YouTube channel, you can look along. But as I look at this, a couple of things stand out to me of the triple doubles. Not a ton of like super high scoring triple doubles. LaMelo's triple double that he had against the Pacers.
Just an awesome game. Yeah,
I believe that was LaMelo's. You kind of have to click in here, unfortunately, on StatMuse to look at this.
It was. I'm pretty sure it was LaMelo who had that against the Spurs, because it was only Terry, right? Because Terry's the only other one on this team that has a triple double. So,
and I think his. I'll figure out which one he had. So, but if you look through here, I'm looking at, Kendall Gill had the very first one. I know that for a fact.
Okay.
His was 11, 10, and 12. That was the first one in franchise history on November 18th, 1995. Hopefully we hit that game at some point. Kendall Gill's first triple double. But yeah, 28 points. I'm looking for high scoring ones. 31. I think that's at 2000. That'd be a Mace.
Maybe a Mashburn.
No, I think Mashburn's was 2002 against the Golden State Warriors. Let's look at, this gives me the game stats.
Did he?
Perfect. So this was it was Diddy. You saw that?
Oh, I just saw his face at the top. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So Barron had 28, 10, and 11 in the 2002 game. So one of the 01 games, I think, was Mash. So 31 points, 14 and 11 on 47% shooting. So not a ton of high scoring ones, but I'm looking at this one, the Phoenix game, the one that Stack Jack had, 24, 10, 10, 2 and 2, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 70, nearly 77% shooting. It was the highest field goal percentage of any triple double in Hornets history.
On double digit attempts too. This isn't like some 5 for 5er, he
gets
shot,
a lot of it at the line. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just went off and helped the Bobcat. I think and Boris Diaw had a really good percentage if one would go back to the box score. So yeah, just took it to him. A nice dominant performance from the Bobcats in this one. Not going to be able to say that a whole lot, I don't think.
I mean, maybe one of the best triple doubles in Hornets history with the 2. I mean, you add the 2 and 2 because you got. Yeah. I think that 29, 10, 13, 1 and 1 from LaMelo against the Pacers, you have to put that one in there.
Well, the one where you get 4 steals too. So if you're just going to go off triple double and you actually, so who's 4 steals, I saw it there close to the bottom too. Whoever got it in 2000. I mean, LaMelo's going to put up some pretty staggering numbers as we go, and already has.
Yeah, so this one in 2000, that's going to be Mace as well, I think. Nope, that was
Diddy again. So it shows the guy at the top, and so Barron doing it again. Not many points though.
14, 10, and 11, 4 steals on that game. But this is not about those. This is not about those Hornets. This is about the Bobcats. So let's go back to the.
We can't do every Hornets box score in one episode. We got to take it. I'm
trying, man. It's just fun to bounce around. It's just too fun. All right, so we know the triple double. We know that. Let's look at the rest of the lineup. Boris Diaw, as you said, he took the most attempts in this game. 11 of 17, 4 of 8, 26 points, 6 assists, 2 rebounds in this game. DJ Augustine was 6 of 10 from the field for
Future
16
Hornet?
points.
Question mark. Future Hornet again?
Could be. You never know. Nobody really talking about him though.
No, they're not.
Gerald Wallace, of course, he was the team leader for a long time, but I think Stack Jack sort of took over that role, when they went to the playoffs, or at least maybe shared that role with Gerald Wallace.
He was more vocal leader. But Gerald, I mean, was just all over the place. He was called Crash for a reason.
14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists on 6 of 11 shooting. And then Nazi Muhammad, the old 10-minute start. Love that. The old Borrego special. A little 10-minute start for Nazi.
Yes, he is. He is absolutely doing the fist pump in the air thing right now.
1 of 4 from the field, 2 points, 4 rebounds. Tyrus Thomas is actually getting the big numbers here.
Yeah, we know it did not work out for Tyrus Thomas here in Charlotte after the contract, but this game, he made you believe maybe, just maybe, we could get something out of him.
Man, how about Matt Carroll getting 7 shots up in 12 minutes? just really taking advantage of his moment. 7 points, 5 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals. Good box score.
Still involved in the organization. Just saw him when I was, covering some practices before they left for Summer League. Saw Matt Carroll. It's funny too. Like I did not realize this, just some of the names slipped through the cracks, but I also saw Donyell Marshall there, and I had no clue he was involved with the Charlotte organization. Just didn't know, right? I know I'm supposed to cover the team. You guys can make fun of me all you want to. I just didn't know. And so I saw him walking, and I was like, wait, that's Donyell Marshall. And I asked Sam Purley, who works for Hornets.com. I was like, yeah, that's Donyell, man. He's been working for maybe a couple of years, which just no clue. So that was a nice treat.
And I forgot to mention on the Steven Jackson piece, when you're considering whether this triple-double is one of the best in Hornets history, because it's a stiff competition. I mean, Mace put up some ridiculous triple-doubles. LaMelo is obviously putting them up on seemingly a monthly basis now. But I have to mention that in this game, Steven Jackson was a +9, which to me, a Bobcats +9 is like a Hornets +18. It's like dog years. You really have to get a positive plus-minus for a Bobcats year.
You at least double it.
You got to double it. More on this box score ahead, but first, I want to, for the second straight episode, go out to David A. Arnott. He was the founder of RufusOnFire.com, what would become the SB Nation blog on the Charlotte Bobcats, what you now know today as At the Hive, to get his perspective on this game, Stack Jack and his triple-double. And I also want to take this opportunity to remind you that this podcast is a listener, reader, viewer-supported podcast. No ads on this here podcast, at least in the Every Hornets Box Score podcast feed. So to help support us, you can sign up at everyhornetsboxscore.com. Now, you can sign up for free, and this podcast will remain free. But if you want access to my game notes for all of the games in this upcoming season, these future box scores, then please consider contributing either $5 per month or $50 for the year to help me keep making this content for you. Okay, with that, let's get to David on the Bobcats. And I don't know if I told you pre-interview, but how this kind of all works is that we're going to randomly select a box score from 5 different eras of the Charlotte Hornets. I've broken it up into early Hornets, late Hornets, the Bobcats, the death of the Bobcats, and then this new era of Hornets basketball. So this is this lands in the death of the Bobcats. It's after that first playoff series. We're in 2010, November 20th, 2010. Interesting game in that Steven Jackson records the first triple-double in Charlotte Bobcats history. It came 5 seasons into that run. That's a pretty long time for a triple-double to come along, but Steven Jackson notches it. Do you remember... I have the Rufus On Fire article pulled up here. I'll screen share that in a minute. But what do you just remember off the jump about that game, if anything?
So I don't remember that game at all. Right. I did look up what I wrote. I was fascinated by how vehement I was that Nazir Muhammad should not play.
That's what I was going to point out. Yeah, I'm going to get this up on the screen. This is pretty interesting. You really went to town on Nazir Muhammad. Was that? Do you think, in hindsight, do you feel that was fair?
So like he has a reputation, and I have no reason to disbelieve the reputation for being like a quintessential good guy and like the guy that a guy that you want to have on your team. But I also feel like it was you can if you I kind of remember some of the frustrations with Larry Brown coming through. I can read that at least, that it's one of those situations where, I was informed a lot by video games actually, and in loving the 7 seconds or less Suns and the idea that, you ought to play small and just run and those sorts of things. And Larry Brown was not that guy, and so that's where I think my frustrations came through. Also, Dominic McGuire. I mean, he became a guy that, again, probably undeservedly so, given because I don't know who he is. I don't know him personally or anything, but I just felt like, why are the Bobcats bringing on somebody like this when we have so many other things going on? Like, what are we really doing here? That was the broad sense that I had in that era of the Bobcats.
Especially after that playoff run, right? I mean, it seems like there might have been. Well, you can tell me. What was there a sense after that playoff season that, hey, okay, got off to a really rough start. A lot of interesting things happen. Felton is gone now. Melvin Ely got shot at. I mean, there was just a lot of weird things that happened around this franchise but the playoffs, did it seem like that? Okay, maybe we could get something going here. And then of course this season happens.
So in retrospect, I think as an older person, I think that was way too harsh on the people who were just happy to be in the playoffs. I think that there's value in trying to win, even if it may not be the best thing for trying to win consistently in the future. And that in that sense of balance, I was way far on at the time, I was way far on the side of like, why are we maxing out all of our resources and trying to get the 7 seed? And so there was a little bit of resentment that I don't think was really fair at that time in my perspective. And I've also chilled out a lot to the point where, I think I would appreciate just the kind of weirdness that they had on that team a little bit more. Like the Boris Diaw experiment is just, in retrospect, really wild, that they took this guy who was originally supposed to be a 6'8" point guard with Atlanta and then got turned into sort of like a point center with the Suns. And then Larry Brown got him. And of all people, Larry Brown was the one who had him start shooting threes. Like, that seems to me something to enjoy, and could have focused a lot more on that than being mad that, well, now we're going to be a 7 seed and we're going to be a 7 seed at best for the foreseeable future. What are we even doing here? Like that's mopey. I should have taken that sort of criticism to heart a little bit more.
Well, but I think it is reflective of, again, some of those early draft mistakes that put them into that position. So they didn't, and some of it was mistakes and some of it was just bad luck. As we reflect on some of those early Hornets years, Walker and I have often discussed how the lottery luck that team had was so the ripple effects of that were so apparent as the years went on. And even all of that luck that early Hornets team had, they still didn't manage to get to an Eastern Conference Finals. And so, the amount of things that need to fall into place to have that kind of playoff success, much less sustained playoff success, is just insane. And I think you're hitting on it there, that we don't appreciate that enough, that we look at a situation like Toronto and go, well, why can't that be us? Well, because it's really hard and also very lucky, some of the things that they had happen to them to get Toronto to where they were. So a lot of interesting things to discuss in that arena. Also, Boris Diaw owns one of those Bobcats triple doubles as well. So he goes down into the history books. What do you think people should remember about the Bobcats? Or a more interesting question for people that are watching this that may have skipped the Bobcats era completely or have become new Hornets fans via LaMelo Ball or Kemba Walker or whatever. What do you think they should know about that Bobcats era?
I think that they should know that even though it was a woebegone team, a team that the city, fairly or not, you might say, didn't take to, and many people didn't really want. And there was all sorts of weirdness around the owner and his relationship with the city and all of that. There was still people who genuinely loved the team for who they were as their own entity. I think it would not be the worst thing in the world for people to think of the Bobcats as a sort of a curio, like people think of the Spirit of St. Louis or something like that. Yeah. But it's also one of those things where I think that it's for the best that they've gone. I've moved on to this point where it's like, it's for the best that they're the Hornets. Hornets make more sense for the city. It's much more beloved. It's much more of a historical brand for the city that is much more tied into what the people want. But at the same time, I guess what I would say is that, I don't want them to be forgotten. I think that there's a how to put this, if they are relegated, if the team, the Bobcats, is relegated to that status of curiosity, I don't want the players, people like Gerald Wallace, especially more than anybody else, to be treated as like, oh, he was just kind of like on this weird team that, so I think that those guys deserve a lot more respect than that.
Who do you have a list? Do you have a list of people? You put Gerald Wallace there. Who deserves to be thought of in that way? Does Boris Diaw make that list?
Boris Diaw's career to me is he's less tied to the Bobcats than to the other tems. I feel like
Tyrus Thomas make that list. Once he may have gotten into a fight with Paul Silas. Does he make that list?
I don't know. I always still think of Tyrus Thomas as a Bull, so I don't know how that works out. I feel like that the guy that I will always think of a Bobcat is Jared Dudley. He went on to a long career. That I was super happy to see him all those years, because from the beginning, I and all my friends who were going to games were saying, like, this guy, Jared Dudley, this is what we love about watching these games and going to these games, because we know 99% chance he's not going to make an all-star team, but he's going to have a long career. And when he did, it was just so gratifying to feel like, oh yeah, we were right about that. And we were very happy that he was on our team for when he was.
Yep. You mentioned the owner, Michael Jordan, would take over during this, during a few years prior to this period. So I don't know how much you pay attention to the team now, but I mean, do you look at anything has transpired since the Bobcats transition to the Hornets? Do any of your experiences covering the team during this time inform what you're seeing now at all?
I don't think so. I think that it's, if anything, my perspective on the outside as someone who no longer can name every single player and on the rosters, on NBA rosters anymore. My experience is that I feel like that Jordan is primarily letting his management do things more. Mitch Kupchak is putting his, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like I don't read about Jordan meddling.
That's
anymore.
good enough. Today, that's anything that feels true. That's exactly good enough. That's the bar you have to clear on the internet.
Right.
It just has to feel true.
Like it's definitely a vibes thing. But like my whole thing with the Hornets now is that does that make you sad? Do you ever like sit in the shower occasionally, like sit in the shower, not stand in the shower, sit in the shower and think about thinking, wow, if Michael had just let his management take care of things during the Bobcats era, they might still be the Bobcats. That's a tough one. I don't know. I might be crawling in the shower if I were starting to think that.
David, I appreciate it. I hope we can have you back because there are a lot more Bobcats games to get to. So we'd love to have you back sometime to reminisce about these different years and eras that the Bobcats went through. But we appreciate the time you gave us today.
Of course, anytime.
I mean, everybody, right? Everybody got to experience some good numbers in the plus
Everybody
minus.
hating this one. This was a blowout.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they ran him out of the gym. Let's look at the lineup for the Phoenix Suns. These are your 2010-11 Phoenix Suns, led by Channing Frye, Goran Dragic, Grant Hill in this one, 8 of 17 for 23 points. He kind of led the way in this one. Hito Turkoglu, Jay Rich in this one, Josh Childress, Hakeem Warwick, Jared Dudley, former Bobcat, and Earl Clark.
I saw Jared Dudley in a Fridays in Indianapolis one time and said what's up to him. That's my Jared Dudley story. I saw him he was hanging out. I think it was probably a Pacers workout at the time, but I went up and said, "Hey man, loved your Boston college years. Awesome to meet you." And then I didn't want to do the autograph thing. I was scared to death to ask like people for autographs when I was a kid, just because I didn't want to bother them, but I did want to just like, "Hey, I like you." Bounce. So that's what happened when I saw Dudley.
Let's go to the papers. That's my news.
It's very good. I like it. That's very good. I hear newspaper when you do that voice.
Let's go to the papers. I've got the Charlotte Observer archive for this game up. Here's some observations from the GOAT, Rick Bonnell. Funny line from Phoenix Suns coach Alvin Gentry pregame when I asked him what it's like to lose point guard Steve Nash to injury. He didn't play in this game. Quote from Alvin Gentry, like being married to, then divorced from Halle Berry, Gentry replied, quickly adding, not that I know.
That's a great one. Yeah, that's very good. Gentry,
what's with this picture? By the way, what's with this picture of Steve Nash where he looks like the Elephant Man? Like he looks like what is this picture?
No.
It looks like a monster.
He does. That is an unfortunate picture, even in black and white.
Looks like Lemony Snicket.
Yes, that does not hide the details well enough. I don't know what injury he suffered at that point, but yeah, that was bad. Yeah. Also, Alvin Gentry, I think a Mountaineer, by the way, Appalachian State. I think he went there, maybe played basketball. But anyways, just a local name. Also, there's Gerald Henderson in the papers there too, 2010. So I guess was he a rookie at this point?
Well, I have to look it up. With Dominic McGuire, stress fracture of the left shin, active for the first time this season, the Bobcats were as close to full health as they've been at any time this season. Only Gerald Henderson's sore left knee was out. So obviously injuries plaguing them a little bit early on. There was an interesting, so there were some observations as well from Rick above the game cap. And there was an interesting thing that I saw while you were talking and I was looking this up.
I was going down my thrilling Jared Dudley story.
It's meeting Jared Dudley on Fridays. I mean, just the kind of stuff that this podcast is known for. It says, Steven Jackson was on pace by this game. Now, again, this is game 13 for the Bobcats. He was on pace to get teed up 30 times.
Oh, Jack. I mean, Steven Jackson was awesome, man. Love Steven Jackson here in Charlotte. I have my loyalties, especially at that time. Right now, it's more so, pretty exclusively Hornets. But I grew up a Pacers and Hornets fan, because I had family in Indianapolis. I wanted to, root for both teams. So I got to see Steven Jackson when he was there with the Pacers, that team that eventually got dismantled because of the malice at the Palace. Would have been a title favorite possibly. And then I got to see him here in Charlotte, which is really cool.
Yeah, but this was during a period of time in the NBA where they were really trying to clean up a lot of the, I don't know, like just moaning and groaning and cursing and tomfoolery that was happening. So there were a lot of texts being handed out, and Stack Jack was certainly the recipient of a few of them. So just a little wrinkle in this season. Also, another wrinkle was that I do kind of remember this at checking in on the Bobcats was there was a little bit of that classic Bobcats misery of watching someone else go and be successful somewhere else. And that was happening with Raymond Felden. If you look around the league, here's a report from New York, his new team, the Knicks. Former Bobcat Raymond Felden scored a career high 35 points on 13 of 17 shooting. He also got a triple. Speaking of triple doubles, Raymond Felden got one of his 2 triple doubles, literally right after that next season when he left the Bobcats. And if you remember, Raymond Felden, they extend him the qualifying offer, making him a restricted free agent, I don't think anyone else gave him an offer. So he signs a qualifying offer. He comes back to the Bobcats, and then the Bobcats don't sign him. So it was just like a terrible ending.
So, all right, I know we're looking at the paper, but it is a perfect segue into my rabbit hole theme, my rabbit hole for this specific show. Okay, so you mentioned how there was this weird, not even weird thing, just a thing with the Bobcats where they would leave the franchise in however way possible, and then they'd go be successful. So I had to limit it down. So I call this, Doug, from Bobcats to contracts. Players who would leave and become
Your segment names are becoming legendary. Well, we had Jermaine Event.
Yep. Nothing but Nylon. And now here we have from Bobcats to contracts. Players who would leave and become key factors for championship teams soon after. So let's start. Jason, just kind of want to put some rules here. Jason Capono, he's on the original team, would win a title with the Heat in 06, but he never contributed. So it doesn't count. Never played at all.
But he won didn't he win a 3-point contest?
Oh, yes. He won 2, I believe. Maybe back to back.
Neither is a Bobcat.
Yeah, correct. So he would win a championship, but never got any run. Same thing with Adam Morrison. Classic, right?
But I think we count Capono. That's what I'm saying. We count Capono because it's not like he won a championship, or it's not like he was a key piece to winning a championship. Yeah. But he won stuff. The thing was, you can't win anything if you're in the orange and white. You had to go somewhere else.
Go through hell in order to get to heaven, and you had to go through the Bobcats. But the next year, you would win a championship. Yeah, that's what would happen. So Adam Morrison, same thing, never contributed, but won a couple of titles with the Lakers. And so then we get into actually guys like playing a little bit. Eddie House plays 13 games for the Bobcats in 04. A little bit of time passes, so not immediately after, but then he wins that 08 championship with Boston, had some moments in their final series against the Lakers. Similar with Shannon Brown. Shannon Brown played 30 games for Charlotte in 08-09, then would go to the Lakers that same year, goes to LA, wins a championship, contributes in their run to those 2 titles, doesn't really play in the final series, so make of that what you will, but at least wins after he leaves the Bobcats. Okay, here's where it really comes into effect. Boris Diaw, one of the more classic examples, leaves Charlotte, requested leave from that team, got bought out in 2012, wasn't eventually traded, but does not want to play there anymore. Falls out of favor with Paul Silas, doesn't play for like 3 weeks, goes to the Spurs, okay? And I'm allowing you some time here to search his page here. I know you got to pull that. Goes to the Spurs. Doug is just an absolute huge part of those finals teams.
Totally.
Plus minus was bananas in the title win in 2014. Plays every game in the finals. Plays over 32 minutes per contest. Most impactful buyout option, like maybe ever for a finals team, for a team that won a championship. Like I wonder if there was a more impactful buyout guy that would play for a championship team immediately after.
But I would not. I'm going to say. Yes, he was impactful, but his best individual years, strangely, because I think a lot of people remember him from his run in Phoenix and they remember him from his run in San Antonio. But his best individual years were as a member of the Charlotte Bobcats. And it's kind of an amazing story about how, he turned his career around in Charlotte.
Oh, so he ended. It was just such a sour ending. Did not want to be a part of the losing team anymore. Got huge. Paul Silas was not about that life. Didn't play him, right?
There was a whole fat Boris Diaw kind of joke amongst the fan base.
Well, I mean, and he was most improved player of the year with Phoenix. And so if you're just talking about hollow numbers, maybe
he's kind of the original. By the way, I don't know if his name came up in the whole James Harden issue where he got really fat to try to get his way out of Houston, but like Boris Diaw was the creator of that move.
Well,
there may have been somebody before him that we're just unaware of, a predecessor.
I'm sure
a food predecessor. I don't know, but
a food processor.
That's kind of where I was trying to go.
Yeah. So yeah, but Boris, the weird thing is Boris, I don't feel like his body changed all that much with San Antonio, but was out there playing huge minutes and being a big time contributor. So that's a bad one. Boris Diaw goes and wins a title with the Spurs, plays 30 minutes a game, just huge for them, right? Sean Livingston, who's on this team, appeared in this game. He's the guy that kind of, made this rabbit hole happen. Sean Livingston played for Charlotte in 2010, 2011. But then, and so a little time passes, but becomes a 3-time champ with the Warriors. Years later, it starts in 2014, 2015. You had the same Diaw effect. Not as many minutes in that final series, but huge impact off of that. Yeah, huge, right? So that's Sean Livingston. The worst one of all, in my opinion. Boris Diaw, you could argue he's the worst. Tyson Chandler. Tyson Chandler plays for the Bobcats in 2009, 2010.
We'll get to him at some point, don't you worry.
So he plays in the year before this. Starts 27 games out of the 51 played. That's it. Do you want to hear the trade that took place here? Gets traded along with Alexis.
You're going to tell me anyway.
Alexis, I think maybe it's Ajinça.
Ajinça.
Gets traded along with Alexis Ajinça to the Dallas Mavericks for Matt Carroll coming back home, Eric Dampier, Eduardo Nahara, and cash considerations. That year he gets traded to Dallas. Chandler starts 74 games for the title winner, second team all defense, would go on to be an all-star after that, continue to rack up wins defensive player of the year even after that. But that year with Dallas, starts every game, plays 40 minutes per contest against the Miami Heat, completely revamps their defense, wins a championship. And there you go. Like that's the list of Bobcats players that would move on and eventually be a key cog in some of these title runs for teams.
Well, it just goes to show you that this franchise has had a really bad history with the country of France. Boris Diaw, obviously that didn't end well. Alexis Ajinça, that was awful.
Well, I mean, if you wanted Rudy Gobert and never got him, that certainly would enhance that argument as well. Just never could get the Stifle Tower. Yeah,
the Tony Parker experience was fine. It was fine.
It was okay.
He didn't do anything. It was a nice compliment for that particular season, but it didn't go anywhere. Nick Batum being the obvious one.
Oh yeah,
didn't work out well.
Yeah, no, you're right. I did not realize the problem. What was as big as it is. To Tony Parker, we had kind of like a 6 man of the year combo for a couple of weeks. That was all it lasted, but we had it for a couple of weeks.
Well, that's a Kelly Oubre then. 6 man of the year for a couple of weeks. That's pulling a Kelly Oubre.
Yeah. He went like a month, and then we quickly moved on from that.
Well, there you go. I'm trying to look at anything else that stands out. I mean, not like they just didn't, the Suns didn't get anything from the bench in this game. Akeem Warwick dropped 11. Josh Childers had 6. But, I mean, this was all about the starting unit for the Phoenix Suns. And Channing Frye had 11 on 42% shooting. Nobody
Heavy
shot the ball.
Production, yeah.
Yeah, nobody shot the ball particularly well. Pretty high-paced game, even, for this era.
Well, this is, so I believe this is right before the Suns would trade Turkoglu, Richardson, and maybe somebody else to the Magic for Vince Carter. So if we're in 2010, this is right at the time where Vince starts to be a journeyman. So, he's with Orlando. Those are probably the last years they're starting to milk out some of the prime, and then he's gone. And then, so this is the trade. Okay, so it happens this year. It might happen later on. Cool. So yeah, so Turkoglu goes back to the Magic, having spent time like 1 year with the Raptors before, and then goes back to Phoenix, and then goes back to Orlando. Mikhail Petrus might have been a part of that trade. Not sure, but yeah. So right before that trade happened.
Oh, interesting assistant coaching staff for the Phoenix Suns, Bill Cartwright, who was the head coach of the Chicago Bulls when they had the final regular season game against the first run Charlotte Hornets that I attended. I remember seeing Bill Cartwright and his big old booty. He had one of those big old booties.
Okay.
Noel Gillespie, who I feel like has some connection to Charlotte. Am I right? No, I'm wrong. Igor Kokoskov, who would later have a cup of coffee as the head coach of the Suns before getting ejected into the Sun. And then this little known guy named Dan Marley.
Dan the Man. Thunder Dan.
Thunder Dan was spent 4 years as an assistant coach and has no other connection to the Phoenix Suns.
In an old man story, my dad absolutely loves a Bill Cartwright story where he talks about, so like dad played college ball, and I think it was like it might have been, I think it was during the time you could not dunk, right? They outlawed dunking. You weren't allowed to do it. And Bill Cartwright played for San Francisco. And so there's a story about him going for a layup, and one of the referees calls him for a dunk. And Bill Cartwright gets, a technical, argues it, say, no, I didn't dunk it. It was just a layup. The official not having any of it. He gets called for it, whatever, right? So Bill Cartwright gets the ball on the low post block the next play that he's allowed to play. So dominant at San Francisco. Drop step, two-hand thunder, Daryl Dawkins slam, just destroys it. Goes right to the ref's face and says, now that's a bleeping dunk. And then he walks off and gets ejected from the game. And so that's one of my dad's favorite Bill. It's an awesome story, man.
That's a cool good Bill Cartwright. In the pantheon of Bill Cartwright stories, that's an amazing Bill Cartwright story.
Yes.
This had to be a miserable time to be a Phoenix Suns fan, because you go 40 and 42 in 2010, 2011. You follow that up with 33 and 33. You're just miserably in the middle. You've got Steve Nash at kind of close to the end of the road. Grant Hill, absolutely the end of the road. Vince Carter at the end of the road.
That was like the very beginning of the end for Vince. Yeah, it was sad. That's like my favorite player of all time. And I remember when it was struggling a little bit with the Magic. That was the end of that Dwight Howard Magic run. Dwight Howard would soon be traded to the Lakers, and just a dominant regular season team that reached the finals that one year, tried to enhance it a little more going after Vince, and just wasn't the same. So would go to Phoenix after that.
And then they finally decide to be miserable after that, and they have a Zeller on their team. Look at that, Luke Zeller.
They do, along with Kendall Marshall. How about that name popping up?
Oh yeah, go Heels. So okay, anything else on the 2010 Bobcats or this particular game? I don't really have any awards to hand out. I mean, I think Did It in the Box Score obviously has to go to Steven Jackson for the triple double. He gets the award.
I don't have anything else either, really. It's funny, like this is, if you look up, I looked this up earlier. Please click on the Dejana Diop stat line for his career. I mean, clearly the defensive guy, but man, just
2 points, 3.7 rebounds, 0.4 assists in 601 games
for a long time. I mean,
an effective field goal percentage of 42.8, which is pretty low for a 7-footer, 7 foot, 300 pounds.
The field goal percentage being 42% for 600 games. I don't think he ever averaged more than 3 points per game, and he had a double-digit season-long career. I would have, if you would have asked me how many points per game did Diop average for his career, I would have gone like 6 or 7. And I would have did not average more than 3 points his entire carear. 2.9 in 07-08. That's nuts. You just can't.
You marvel at that kind of thing. There's no doubt about it. You could almost give a honk award, the all goose eggs to Sharon Collins. 1 minute played, but he managed in 1 minute. There needs to be an award for this, to manage in 1 minute to get an assist and a personal foul. I don't know how you do that.
Sharon was a champion. Played for the Jayhawks. I believe might have been a freshman on that 08 team before, became a prominent player there.
Dominic McGuire, 0 of 5, 17 minutes. Like, what is, just a miserable game here from Dominic. But like, this was the Bobcats. This was, these names that pop up and you're going like, what is this guy getting 18 minutes for?
Yeah.
That was the world they were living in. And ultimately it was just a disappointing year for the Bobcats, by the way. They finished, as I said, 34 and 48. They missed the playoffs after making the playoffs. Larry Brown, 9-19. He gets the boot, and that's the Larry Brown. It was the Larry Brown book. Come in, rebuild the team, and then get tired of it all and get fired or leave. And then Paul Silas comes in to try to clean things up and does an admirable job. They finished 25 and 29 on the rest of the season.
Yeah, we just need to call Paul Silas every time something goes bad. Hey, can you just deal with this bad thing,
please?
He took
an absolute bullet for this franchise. That's
I know.
Yes. That does not. Paul Silas does not deserve to have that on his record. In fact, I don't. And when I think of Paul Silas, I wiped that season away. I look at it as a badge of honor. Thank you, Paul, for enduring that when you didn't really have to.
Yeah, you don't think of, when you think of Paul Silas, you think of a lot better things. I do like that. Like, I mean, I feel like that's kind of more so the general consensus too for Hornets fans. When you think of Paul Silas, I don't think anybody really goes to the 7-59 season. You go to the years where he was successfendo with this franchise, and you have a few to choose from.
Players on this team.
Yeah,
there's names that we haven't even touched on because they didn't play in this game. Dante Cunningham, Hendo again had the injury, didn't play in this game. Eduardo Nahara, Joel Prisbilla, Garrett Temple would have a cup of coffee with
still in the league. Garrett Temple, Garrett Temple still.
Is there anyone else still in the league from this game?
You know, Sean Livingston just left.
Kind of.
DJ, yeah,
almost all gone.
That's it. Dante Cunningham, by the way, that on that Villanova team that played North Carolina in the Final Four, but would lose, and Carolina would win the championship in 2009. So maybe some heels know about Dante.
By the way, when Paul Silas took over, and I don't think, I'd have to look, but I don't think Stephen Silas was on the staff under Larry Brown. It may have been, so don't quote me on that. I'm not issuing a correction. But Stephen Silas being on this Bobcat staff means, I think, I'll look it up. It'd be a tough one to look up. I'm just going to go ahead and say it's true. It feels true, and that's good enough in this internet era for something to feel true. But Stephen Silas would be the only person, I think, to have coached the first-run Hornets or be on the staff of the first-run Hornets, the Bobcats, and the second-run Hornets.
Yeah, I can't think of anybody else that would be on that. Looking at these names, I do want to reference, like, here we are talking about nepotism. And we go, you know, ACC infatuation. Jeff Capel, Duke, right? Been there for a while at this point. Mm-hmm. Phil Ford, self-explanatory.
Dave Hanners, UNC.
Dave Hanners, yes, was on a staff for North Carolina. I believe won a championship in 93.
Now is on Hubert. I think he coaches. I think he's an assistant for UNC like right now.
Yeah, there you go. Charles Oakley, known mentor and, you know, a bodyguard for Michael Jordan, and MJ will forever, you know, love Charles Oakley for good reason. And then, of course, Stephen Silas, who is on the staff because of Paul Silas, even if Stephen's a great dude, right? Like, well-deserved, but yeah, obviously that's his door in.
And we can, and you know, we're kind of wrapping up the show now. We can dig into this on another game in this year, but around the time of his firing, or maybe after he was fired. But Larry Brown would go on later to say that there were like spies within the organization for the front office that were. Is
that right? I didn't remember that.
Yeah. And so some of it's probably fair. Some of it's probably unfair. But like Larry Brown really did eviscerate the franchise after he left, saying essentially that he was being sabotaged in this.
Which is weird
year.
because that doesn't go towards the Carolina Blue Mafia, right? Like Larry is a Tar Heel, and I guess it got so ugly. You know, it doesn't matter at that point. Yeah,
I'll say it's something to watch. It's something to watch this season for the Charlotte Hornets. I think it's an interesting wrinkle that you bring Steve Clifford back from the dead, and he's coaching again, but he's coaching with this like hybrid staff. Some of his guys, some of some previous holdovers from the Borrego regime. Those things more often than not, as I'm reading more about Hornets history where this has happened before, lead to conflict more often than not. When you
the only difference, right? The only difference now is that Steve and Jordan pretty clearly have a great relationship, and Jordan's the owner.
Will see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah,
I think we'll see if that relationship gets tested. He's already fired him once.
It's true. It's true.
All right, time now for America's favorite segment, the extremely classic pro basketball player of the podcast. We travel to the 1950s and find the 652nd best player of the decade, according to AinsworthSports.com. And it is Zippy Morocco. Congratulations, Zippy. Extremely classic pro basketball name of the week. You want some stuff that might be Zippy?
My favorite so far. We had Soup Campbell the last episode, going to Zippy Morocco. That's a fun name.
Zippy Morocco also played football. He graduated from, or I don't know if he graduated, but he played at the University of Georgia And he was called at football, he was called the best pass receiving back I've ever coached by head coach Wally Butts. Wally Butts commenting there on Zippy Morocco. But he was actually drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles in 1951.
Okay.
But he was also the 652nd best basketball player according to Ainsworth Sports.
Of all time? Can't be of all time.
652nd best player of the 1950s, not of all, all eras of the 1950s.
I'm sorry. That I knew it would not be all time. I was just making sure it was like what decade we were talking about. The 50s. Zippy. It's a great name.
Zippy Morocco. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of Every Hornets Box Score. I can't wait until we get to the next episode where we're going to talk about the modern era of Charlotte Hornets basketball post 2016. We don't have any playoff games to land on, but we have a lot of interesting stuff. We've got Nick Batum's exit. We've got Kemba Walker's continued ascension. Really, I mean, he would have some of his best years post that playoff series. So hopefully we land on one of his great games. You'll have to see. Come check it out. Make sure you're subscribed to the Substack. You can subscribe for free. I'm going to be doing game notes all regular season. So consider contributing to the Substack. You're contributing not only to the game notes, but also to this podcast and all of the information that we're providing you here. So consider that. Thank you to Walker. Subscribe to Locked On Hornets. Until next time, go Hornets, go America. Let's swarm Charlotte.